Hey guys, welcome to Goku of Light One Piece discussion. So if you've ever been to one of these other videos, you pretty much know how I do it. I just generally talk about the character and what I know and what I think, and I answer questions periodically and things like that. The one bad thing about live streams is I won't be able to have the pictures, it's like as if I was doing the editing and referring to that. So it's one of the reasons I really do like the theories and whatnot. But you just give me a few moments, and I'm going to share this link around so that way we can have some people asking questions as I'm discussing it, and we'll go from there. So just one moment. One more moment. Be a good discussion today, Akainu. All right. All right. So let's start off with the character. We know that for him, everything is necessarily about absolute justice, or that's what we have so far. Is like what we've been shown with this character is that everything for him is about absolute justice. He has a strong, firm belief on it to the point where he's pretty much killed people in the name of justice. And the thing that I think is interesting now, let's rewind a little bit back. If if we go into the beginning of Akainu, like in the very beginning of the series, he's first mentioned by I believe Robin. Robin's the first one to bring him up, and he's kind of just mentioned on the side. Now let me see something. So okay, so what I remember, he's mentioned by Nico Robin in the manga. So I'm checking up right here to make sure my facts are correct. And apparently, it says right here that he's also mentioned by Vice Admiral Jonathan during the anime-only G8 arc. So that's also something to note if you were only watching the anime and you never were a person that's really on the manga. Because I know a lot of people that watch One Piece that don't even watch the manga. Um, And so if you're only on, say, like the anime, maybe you didn't know that Nico Robin was the one that introduced him going into the manga. So maybe you know that now. Now going forward, when they first introduce him, he comes off as like pretty much a hard ass. He has this whole thing with absolute justice, and he pretty much, he contributes. Prior to the war, he doesn't really make a big impact. So like if you're in the beginning of the series or the manga, this really isn't for you to watch, and that's why I kind of listen to the description spoilers. So maybe you don't want to watch this, but going forward, he during the war when everything breaks out, the Marineford arc, his big impact is killing Ace and basically fighting Whitebeard and just making a name for himself basically across the board with these different big juggernauts in these fights. So one with obviously Whitebeard, two with what he does to Ace, and he leaves a scar on Luffy. So that alone gives us a good, like, I would say, foreshadowing that he's gonna be either the final villain or one of the leading final villains. Leading up to it, but we'll get into that when we get there. So the main thing I wanted to discuss was his possible connection with Fujitora, sorry, and how they basically, have, I would think, a past together. So let's see this. Now, I don't have the exact pictures in front of me to show you, but I can just refer to you, and if you want to check yourself, go ahead and just type in Akainu, Akainu, however you want to say it. Go to Google, type it in, go to Wikipedia, whatever you want to look, or go to just Google Images, anything really, and just type in Akainu as a kid. And yeah, if you check out his images as a kid, you could see he looked very poor. He has his shoes torn up, and the thing that I know is that he has a small blade. Now, if he would have just had this one picture as a kid with a small blade, it probably wouldn't have mattered too much because he would have just came off as like a thief, and basically struggling. While that does mean something, it wouldn't have mattered too much as far as the blade goes. But now, if you fast forward, we know that Akainu trained under Zephyr, in the whole marine thing, and who also trained under him was the yellow monkey. Okay, now, hold on, let me get the exact name on him because I know people aren't gonna want me to refer to him as that. I always call him the yellow monkey because I refer to him, by the whole Chinese little demeanor. It's the easiest thing to remember for me. Um, Kizaru, yeah, okay. Apologize for forgetting his name. It's been a whole week without One Piece. So Kizaru, basically Kizaru, him and Zephyr trained. They trained under him and Akainu trained under Zephyr. Now, what I think is if they both trained under Zephyr, it's likely to think that someone else, as far as that skill level, also trained under Zephyr. And to me, it would make sense that it would be Fujitora. And the reason I say that is because if we look at Fujitora, he has many things that connect him to Akainu, in my opinion. One, if you just the looks, like if you just notice one thing with One Piece, like characters that are related or connected in one way or another, they usually have a similar look. Like as far as maybe like their skin tone or their face or just the way they're drawn in general. And if you notice like his beard, his goatee, everything really closely resembles Kainu. Now, I don't think that they're brothers or anything, possibly cousins. But I know that they're connected in that sorts. Now, the thing that sticks out to me right here is he necessarily is a swordsman. Kind of was a swordsman at one point because if you look at the picture of him when he was a teenager and he first was joining the Marines and he was fighting under Zephyr, he had a sword, and this has to be prior to him gaining the fruit of the Magu Magu no Mi or Magu Magu no Mi, however you want to say it. Um, this is probably prior to him getting that. So now, while we know Fujitora is primarily based on the traveling swordsman, let me get his name for you there. 1 second. Zatochi, I believe his name. Yeah, Zatochi is how you would say his name. Um, is a swordsman, a blind swordsman that he's closely based on, and the whole thing about the swordsman is he was like a killer at first, and he was travel, and then he joined up with the yakuza. He started doing some pretty bad crimes, I guess you could say, or horrible crimes, and after that, he kind of had remorse. He started feeling bad. He turned his leaf. He became a wanderer and started traveling around and helping people, basically repenting for his sins. Now, I believe that the form of this we see is when Fujitora is in the world government, and you see how he's talking about that they don't want to. He doesn't want to cover up the dirty deeds of the world government that he wants to show them, and he doesn't mind it throwing away his pride and everything, as we've seen in the last couple chapters. So I believe that's a strong indication that he is that character, in fact, and that we can see resemblance of his past connecting to others. Now, with everything that we see connecting him to Akainu, I believe that since we see these pictures of Akainu as a kid, that he was formerly a part of some group of bandits or some evil organization or just some nefarious group in general, and that Fujitora would come upon this group and make an impact on his life. And at this point, Akainu would become a swordsman. Fujitora would keep traveling, but they would have a second meetup later on when Akainu was actually part of the Marines, and he would convince Fujitora to join the Marines. And Fujitora would do so, wanting to repent for all these people he killed as a swordsman. And I think they would connect through some kind of swordsman spirit kind of thing. Now, the interesting part is, was he blind the entirety of it, or did he become blind through maybe Akainu's actions? I think it's possibility that he was blind from the beginning, but it's also possible that he became blind through some form of Akainu's actions when he gained the Magu Magu no Mi, and also this would be the reason why he no longer uses his sword, being a disgraced swordsman. And then feeling, something like I believe his name is Byakuga or something like that. I don't remember how to pronounce his name completely, but the captain from Bleach, Rukia's older brother, how the first time he failed, he felt such a dire need to complete absolute justice and basically not mess up again in any form of even if he had to kill his sister. I think Akainu may have a similar past. maybe one time, he made a mistake based on morals with Fujitora, and it caused Fujitora his vision, and because of that, he feels this reason to uphold absolute justice no matter what now, and no matter what, he'll sacrifice anybody. Or maybe it's not even based on Fujitora. Maybe it's based on somebody else from his past. I'm just saying that he's a possibility. But the whole thing with Akainu is, I believe, this whole thing that we see with absolute justice and this whole desire and complete need to perform it comes with some kind of previous failure. Because as we can see that he grew up poor. He looks like he was something like I said, a bandit. I'm not really sure. Um, so that's interesting to me. Um, so let's see. One moment now. All right. So going a little bit more into it. Um, I think that if he's not connected to Fujitora, that's not too big of a deal. That's not too detrimental to the discussion. I think the true discussion is to discuss his demeanor and what we can expect from him in the future, and maybe the connections of his past. So another thing is, there's a couple theories that Bonney is his daughter, that Bonnie is connected to him, and this could be another reason why we see that he doesn't hesitate to arrest her or take her into custody, and why she could be trying to escape from him because maybe Bonnie's mother got killed in some accident, and Akainu was somehow responsible. And so somehow being responsible for his wife's death and her mother's death, she's constantly fleeing, want nothing to do with him. He feels an absolute need to never fail anybody else, similar to what we've seen in Bleach. So, I think that's a possibility. Now, let's look at something else. So, the move that is called Inugami Gurin is Dog Bite Blaze. It's a move where he does where basically his arm turns into something similar to at first you may think it's a dragon, but it's a dog. If you've ever seen that attack where it comes out and during the anime and it has all the teeth and the eyes and all that, that's a dog. Okay, he's called the Red Dog for a reason. Now, what I believe is that the reason that it's called the Inugami Gurin is because the Inugami is a demon dog that you find in ancient mythology. Everything based around, I don't know. I want to say Japan or China. I'm not going to say specifically because I'm not too well on my history, but I know it's one of their folklore. And basically, this animal is used to punish people that have done crimes, murderers, and things like that. And they have to do this very basically like sadistic ritual to summon this creature. Basically, they bury a dog in the ground with his head standing above the dirt, which just only his head above the dirt, and they get the food and water and nourishment that the dog would need, and they put it just out of his reach and leave it there, and they let the dog basically go crazy. And when the dog starts hallucinating with hunger and going mad and like whapping and everything else after like a day or a couple of days or however long it takes, they cut its head off. Yeah, they fucking cut its head off. Unreal, right? And then apparently they take the head and they put it somewhere underground where there's tons of people, a lot of constant activity. So like they might put it under the street or buried under a tree or somewhere where there's going to be a lot of activity. And they leave it there for a supposed amount of time and it didn't really list. And then after that, they take the head back and they put it with the body and they do some kind of burial ceremony. And apparently that's what's supposed to summon this dog. And then this dog comes out and they can do whatever they want with it. I guess they can possess people, they can punish people, all kinds of abilities come with it. It's kind of like a shaman thing. It's out there. But the reason I bring this up is because they use it as a form of punishment more than anything. That's what it's based on, is it's used to punish criminals. Now, if you notice, this is an attack Akainu uses. So I think everything with him is about punishing criminals, about him being, in charge of everything. Because the whole thing with Bonnie, if you know her backstory, the pirate she's based on, it's all about like her father being this mayor and her escaping it and trying to go with this other group of pirates and then basically going on an adventure and trying to avoid her father. So I think it's real safe to say that she might be joining up with Luffy's crew in the future, or even if it's just temporarily. I'm not saying that she's going to be a Straw Hat by any means, but I could see her being on the ship. I could see her taking off with them or any other crew, because I don't think her crew essentially will be strong enough. I think she'll have to kind of go off on her own. Maybe she'll get another crew. I don't know. I don't really see it. I think she's better off joining somebody else's crew. Um, so going back into Akainu, he could very easily be based on this mayor character that lost his wife. He has a strong form of justice, and I think he used to be a swordsman. So if you're watching this video right now live, or if you watch it, later on my channel, let me know what you think. Comment below. Do you think he's a swordsman? Why do you think the pictures of him prior, he's shown like as a bandit with a dagger, and then as a teenager with a katana? But now he has no sword. Why is that? Do you think it's some kind of disgrace, some kind of failure that he had? Um, Me personally, like I told you, I think it might be connected to Fujitora. I'm not completely 100% on that, but that's my belief. Is that's why he doesn't have a sword no more. Um, Maybe that's where his failures come from. I don't know. I think it's all about absolute justice. I think that's really the hitting it on the nail. Let me answer. Let me see if anybody has any questions. So yeah, like for me, that's where I think will be a good grasp on the backstory. Um, I'm not 100%. Like I said, I'm just spitballing. That's all speculation. But going into the future, I think what we can expect of his actions. We can expect him to become more cutthroat. I think. I think there's going to be a fine line between him, the Gorosei, and a similar group spouting up, but more along the lines of real justice. Someone like Fujitora, Smoker, all these other people. I think that they're going to be three different factions, almost working towards different goals within the world government. So this is going to be interesting to see. Will Smoker's group actually stay part of the world government? I don't know. But I do expect them to at some point break off or either get killed. But I don't think that they can sit there and contest someone like Akainu and it just idly goes by. I think it has to become something at some point in the show. So I look for Akainu to make everybody get in line essentially with him. You either get in line or you're against him and he'll kill you, kind of thing. That's kind of how I see it. So now somebody's asking me they never understood why Bonney was considered his daughter. Um, let me hold on. Let me get this information for you, bud. So there's a woman named her name's Anne Bonney, I believe. Um, I could have no, yeah, I believe that's hold on. I want to say it's Anne Bonney. It could be another Bonney. Um, but essentially, the whole thing is that the Bonney that she's based on, the Bonnie the pirate, because a lot of the One Piece characters, obviously, like from Blackbeard and a few of the other characters, like even the characters I'm talking about right now, are based on characters in real life or people from history. And so there's a famous pirate named Bonnie, and she basically would always escape. I believe what his name was Kaliko Jack or something like that. And her dad was a mayor, and he was famous for always trying to capture her and bring her back home. So that's a big part of it. Let me see if that's the exact name for you. One second. Yeah, so it is Anne Bonny. I just checked that up for you. It's Anne Bonny, and like I said, basically, it's believed that Akainu would be her father because he's similar to being like he would be like the mayor figure, and because his daughter would play a big part in the Gorosei as far as what they need to stay eternally at the age that they're at, because their age hasn't really moved much. Like if you look at like things from like prior, like everything that happened, with say with Orohara when they ordered the Buster Call and all that stuff. their Gorosei are still the same age. They haven't aged since then. So it's safe to assume that maybe that they were aging prior to this, or maybe they age only a certain amount, like every maybe like 20, 30 years, 40, 50 years. I don't know, however long the fruit lasts or the user can stay alive. They age a certain amount of time until they find the fruit. But it's a good safe to say that like they're involved with Bonnie and staying young. That'd be the safe explanation of how they're at the age that they're at still. And so if they are connected to her, it'd be safe to assume that Akainu is more likely than not would be her father. And that's a little bit why earlier I was indicating that maybe her mother died, and that's why we see this absolute form of justice. And so okay, now let's go a little bit more into the future. Um, going into the future, what I would expect to see is basically a Kainu uh, take on every person that is somewhere in the middle. You know what I mean? Someone that's not going to be a top tier character, but doesn't and they're in the world government, and they're kind of in the middle. Like these people like that try to stand out. Like Fujitora, Smoker, maybe even Tashigi. All these different characters. Um, we don't know the Green Bull yet. Maybe he's gonna, not be with this whole form of absolute justice that he's with. You know, um, a Kauji. Maybe he goes head to head with him. Maybe he's the one to kill him, not Blackbeard. Who knows who he's gonna kill, but I think that he plays a pivotal part in killing a lot of these characters. One second, okay, and so yeah, I believe, like I said, the attacks are a good indication of that. Um, Also, the first real indication of we get, I would say, of his superiority over over other Logias. Like we can see that his Logia is stronger than most. So even if we see some of these side characters get involved, I see him fighting them more than anybody. Like for example, like if Enel came back right now, I don't see Enel being a complete villain, quote unquote, especially if he's learned all this knowledge and he comes back with this education. And if he has to match up against somebody, who better than Akainu? Because him, or even maybe the Green Bull or somebody like that. I don't know who's going to be the best matchup, but I'm just saying like there's going to be people that fall in the middle, and I believe because this whole thing of absolute justice, he'll be the one to clear them out. Because Luffy, if he has no problem with these people, he's not going to fight them. And most other people that are essentially in the new world already are positioning themselves for different tasks or opportunities or goals. You know what I mean? So the other side characters that are not involved in that need somebody else to kind of clean them up. Um, Now let's see. Yeah, and so like, and the thing too is like when they show him as a kid, he didn't have like a Marine hat or nothing like that. So it shows that he wasn't with the Marine thing as a kid. Because some of the people they're shown, they've been with the Marines since they were small. They were brought in. He obviously changed, and the thing too is he's always had this like grim demeanor. You know what I mean? So it's like maybe he even since a kid he did something that was abs- something so wrong. Maybe his mom died, or maybe he had to be a bandit and he was always stealing and he did all these horrible things. Maybe he killed multiple people as a child. Maybe he was like on some dark justice stuff. I don't really know. So that's something. Um, like I said, if you see like the thing how he's depicted in the One Piece film Z, which is like the best thing that you can see as far as when they're like mid age, he has a katana across his back. So I mean, I thought that was something because while there is multiple swordsmen in One Piece, and while they do have a lot, if it's somebody that just has a sword to have a sword, like say like a normal pirate everyday kind of thing, like it's at their side, and it's more of that. What would you say? Like it's more of the odd shape. It comes out to like a basically a curve. While The Kainu's blade looks like a straight katana, a straight normal, like almost something like Fujitora sword. So that's something to note. Um, let's see. And I think something else too is I think a lot of people don't understand how old he is. Like in the current timeline, he is 55. And even at debut, he was 53, and he's considered part of the older generation. He's considered part of Sengoku's generation, Garp's generation. That being said, there's a possibility that he's not meant to make it to the very end. While everybody would like to believe he needs to be the let's see, drowning since he has magnet powers, he would create. I'm just I apologize if anybody's like, why did I stop? I'm just reading some of these comments. I have a lot of people putting comments. I just want to check that out. I do consider Law to be a swordsman, even though he is like he's a medic to a degree because he's the doctor of his group. I think he's still a swordsman because he has a cursed sword. It's not just a sword; it's a cursed sword, and he's pretty skilled with it at that. So, and it's his primarily form of offense. He doesn't like use his abilities and then like kick you and all this other stuff. Like it's always a sword attack. So I would say Law is a swordsman. As far as Roger Base's theory, haven't watched the video, so I can't really speculate that on too much. But I do think some popular characters will die from drowning. Like if you happen to look at my channel when you have another moment, if you haven't ever watched the video, I have one on my Blackbeard discussion, and in that video I explain how I think Blackbeard will actually drown at the very end. So it is possible that people will drown. Um, Now, going a little bit more into some of these questions. Okay, so the whole thing with Akainu too is that like he has the ability to basically evaporate Earth and to create like tunnels almost to a degree. So while it is possible that he could drown, I think it is also safe to assume that he could cancel out water to the point that it would just steam around him. Because if he has this awakening, like like these other people obviously have of higher tier power, then it would be safe to assume that he could do some kind of volcanic eruption in a strong radius around him. And if that were the case, I believe he would evaporate all water in that radius. So while it is possible, we've seen that a Kauji or whatever how you want to say his name, basically was icing over the water. He was traveling just on ice. He was almost doing like some ice age shit to the whole water. So you can use your devil fruits on water. It's not they don't automatically aren't just canceled out. It isn't just a nullify. You know what I mean? You need a certain degree of power. And if you yourself fall in the water, then yeah, it would take you out. But I believe that the tier of power we've seen he's at. I mean, he was with what Whitebeard did when he sent him flying into the earth and he tunneled into the side and all that other stuff and basically kept himself alive. Like he has a higher degree of power, and especially after a time skip, all this other stuff. It's safe to assume we're going to see a lot of crazy shit. Okay, now let's see. The thing that I get with Akainu, like I guess you could say, like just the vibe I get is this whole Hawaiian thing. He wears these Hawaiian shirts. He has volcanoes. He looks Hawaiian to a degree. And then that's why Fujitora too. I believe he has like this Hawaiian look and stuff like that too. Like I believe they have a similar origin or similar past. So I believe that's something. Um, looking looking forward, what I think is that we could see Akainu and Fujitora fighting at some point, even if they're connected. I still think we see them fighting at some point because there's got to become a point where either A Fujitora just completely leaves the world government and he becomes like a rogue, kind of like a Koji, and he maybe even an ally of some of these different pirates, or B he forms his own faction and his own form of the Marines, which I think is more likely. I think him and Smoker breaking off is more likely. Smoker has respect for him. It was shown him and Tashigi and all them, so I think that if he was to break off, and be like, look, this is what's right, I think a lot of people would follow. I think it just takes a little bit more time. Obviously, with One Piece, everything goes at a certain pace, so it's going to be a long time before we see some development like that. But if we, especially if we had another time skip, that would be very safe to assume. Um, Now let's see. Another thing too is his tattoos. If you notice, the smaller tattoo in the shape of a black sword on his right deltoid, and a small part of the right bicep. So he has a tattoo of a sword on him. So there's this strong theme of being a swordsman. It's just something that I feel like isn't really pointed out enough. So that's something I'm making a case point. And how that can connect. If it was going to connect to anybody, it would be Fujitora, because somebody recommended him, highly recommended him. So that comes to, in my opinion, of two people, possibly either A, Kizaru, or B, Akainu. Because they would be the likely sources coming from that previous fight or generation, you could say, of the start of the series, of being the former admirals, and the other one leaving. Um, so let's see. Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can talk about with him because he's only shown so much. So a lot of it is speculation. I'm just going off of what I see, obviously. So this is more. That's why I said this is more of a discussion than a theory video. 'Cause I don't even. I'm just kind of just speculating, just talking about it. Now, let's say this. Say that either or, however it goes, if it goes down the path that most people assume or they speculate that he'll be the final villain, I think that that could only happen if he turns on the Gorosei. Because in normality, I think that at a certain point we have like almost like this standoff of like the new world, the revolution, like everybody that's changing it from like Dragon and Luffy and all the big characters that everybody loves, to the Gorosei and the world government in the middle. Because while they are fighting for the Gorosei, and while they obviously belong to the Gorosei at this point, there's going to be a point in the future towards the end of the series where they belong more to Akainu. That's what I believe, because I think at some point he becomes fleet admiral. At some point, he has to take Kong's position, in my opinion. Um, I think that at a certain point he gets promoted up, and so does Kizaru. He becomes the fleet admiral, or no, not the fleet admiral. He becomes the current position that Akainu is, which is the fleet admiral. So I correct that. So Akainu is the fleet admiral, and Kizaru would become the fleet admiral. But what would happen is that, here, let me get this. I'm at the wrong thing. Commander in chief. There you go. My correction. So I believe that Akainu in the future would become the commander in chief and replace Kong, while Kong either retires or dies or however that goes. And then from there, I believe that Kizaru get promoted up, and then at that point, that would put them in position to break off, from Gorosei's control, assuming that he's not corrupted. Because I don't think that he would be corrupted, because the whole thing is absolute justice. That's how he makes this big deal and this big thing. But on top of that, we've seen when he's talking to Fujitora that he wanted to cover it up, and he was embarrassed that he bowed down and all this other shit. So his view on things are a little skewed, as far as like he does believe that making the world government feared is the only way. He believes fear is absolute. So it's interesting to see how that works. But in the final battle, if, say for example, okay, hold on, I got other questions, just checking them out. Okay, so for example, if the kind is with the world government, whoever his admirals are, and whoever else, people like Kobe, because at a certain point, I believe his morals are going to be put on test. Like when it comes to Fujitora, Smoker, and all them, like they're going to call him out, and he's going to either have to kill them, send them out into another group, or he's gonna have to, become the leader they need, and change his view on the Gorosei, and and be like, look, basically he'll do whatever he has to take for justice. You know what I mean? Because that ruthless justice, I think, is what I'm getting out of him. Ruthless justice. It is absolute justice, but it's a ruthless justice. Like he'll cut anybody's throat to get what he needs out of the justice kind of thing, or to create justice. And so that being said, I think if at a certain point of Endgame, like right now, he could play along and just play along, but at the final point, if he sees a way to like overthrow the Gorosei and become this like the lead faction, he will, or he'll attempt to at least. Obviously, Luffy and a lot of these other pirates aren't going to be cool with that, but they could. There's going to have to be a form of the world government no matter what. Like that's the hierarchy, and most of these people are not fit to lead. While they are heroes and they do have a reason to rebel against the government, they're not fit to lead. Luffy cannot lead the world. Like he's a cool character, but he's not like meant to lead the world kind of thing. He's not meant to. He couldn't do what what basically a lot of the people in the world government do. He couldn't do the positions of these admirals. These are adults. These are people that have world life experience. They're like in their 50s and stuff like that. While they might have corrupt views to a degree, they know how to run a system. That's what matters. The system makes the world run. The whole entire world at this point is part of this system. It's not just a matter of 20 kingdoms anymore. So I think that the system is still needed. Like while you abolish the old system, you create a new. So I think that Akainu can very because Luffy doesn't tend to kill, and while he did kill Ace, unless somebody else is fighting him, I could see him having a part in beating the Gorosei, and then after that fighting Luffy, and then whatever happens happens, but because at the end of the day, I think Blackbeard is more likely to be an end game opponent. I think that Blackbeard is more likely to get the One Piece first, and that Luffy has to take it from him, and I think prior to that he could get caught fighting the world government because Blackbeard is a lot smarter than him, given, and he orchestrates things, so I could see him orchestrating the Straw Hats getting caught by the world government in Raftel while he gets the One Piece. If you get what I'm saying. Let's see this. So yeah, I don't think there's too much to talk about, but I'll just put a little bit more into it, kind of put it in a timeline altogether because everything I said was kind of scattered from answering questions and just talking. I think that Akainu is quite possibly a bandit or a thief, or has some kind of hard background, grows up to become a swordsman. He uses a katana. It's shown in One Piece World Z, film Z, when he fights with the sword. If you look at the pictures, all that. Obviously, it's a movie, so it's not part of the manga, so you don't have to consider that. You don't want to, but if you were to look up the character, like if you were to look him up on Wikipedia and all that, they include all those images on there as well. So I feel like that's part of his past. Just kind of speculating how I feel on it. I think there's a reason for why they're there. Obviously, people edit the links so they can put them there if they want to, but I just think it's pretty good information. I think there's a reason why some of the stuff is there in some of these movies and some of it's not, to give us like background information, like on people like Zephyr, for example. So yeah, I think him being a former swordsman is important. His whole like narrow view on absolute justice, I think it comes with a prior loss, similar to Byakuya in Bleach. How when Rukia's older sister died, and it was his wife, and he had to just like complete this form of justice. I believe he has something similar to that, and either A, it connects to Fujitora and something that happened between them and being swordsman, or B, it connects to Bonney and him being her dad and something that happened to her mother. Either or, very possible. If you think any of those are good speculations, comment below. Let me know what you think. What's your theory on Akainu and his past, and was it some kind of tragedy? And what did he do? And did he have a big hand in it? Did you just watch? Was he helpless? Like, how do you think all that went? And going to the future, possible last villain, possible not. I think that if he stays loyal to the Gorosei as their quote unquote dog, then he will be one of the final villains guaranteed. He could very strongly outlive the Gorosei. Um, Possibility B, Blackbeard is the last villain because he orchestrates everybody as puppets. He is a lot smarter than most people, it seems. So yeah, those are my thoughts, speculations. Akainu, it's been a One Piece discussion. Let me know if you enjoyed it. I haven't done them in a while. I'm trying to consider if I should do more of these or theories or what I really want to do. So yeah, comment on the video, like it, dislike it, whatever you like to do. That's your thing. And give me your opinions below because I'm interested. These are just my thoughts. I put these speculations together off of just basically watching episodes that I have about the character, Wikipedia, and just random thoughts. So let me know what you think. It's been Goku of Light. Thank you for stopping by, and you guys have a good one.